Starbucks, and it was 4 o'clock, and they're like, sorry, we're closed. And I was like, how are you closed at 4? And they're like, coronavirus. I'm like, it's 4. And I was like,
So funny.
Are they closed?
I got
totally,
so
or-
sad. So now I have to make my own coffee.
Earlier now?
Just say that you're going for a walk.
I thought you were
I
drinking
know
milk.
there's a skeleton.
I know the
Skeleton's trying to
10
kill
Ren
me.
is allowing you to do.
You're gonna go
He's only doing orders online.
I found a hookup for eggs. If anyone needs eggs,
A
The
farm.
farm in Ranch what's it?
Corky.
Right.
Corky's restaurant will sell you 30 eggs for $10.
Oh, nice.
Just so
Awesome.
you know, because I have not been able to find eggs for
so
like
I
2
don't know
weeks.
if I want their eggs.
Why this headache?
What happened?
Okay,
Mom?
I'll make it later.
Sit.
I'll get after this.
Yeah, and the
All
one
right.
time that I think I'm gonna.
Let's see.
Oh.
Oh, I can hear my son's getting.
Oh, yeah, I already
You have
closed it.
silence on there?
Oh, the blind.
Dude,
Alrighty.
Hunter's just like.
Where's my window?
Playing Minecraft till we start.
Oh, okay. Share PowerPoint. Share. All right. What do you see? You see everything that you need to see?
That'll work.
Yeah.
Do you
Oh,
see
I just
Seth
completed
Rogen?
myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Okay, cool.
I just watched the video. on
Yes,
this.
sir.
Did you?
Yeah.
Dang. You good?
Okay.
Wow, I'm a thought sure.
Should we get started?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're not really gonna do bell work.
Hardly ever.
Huh. We are. What does this say?
Normal. That's normal. Good.
Okay, we can have a we could have a verbal discussion about this question. It says, think about how the Supreme Court should behave. How do you think they should behave? Because that's the whole point of today's lecture. Should they try to interpret the Constitution the way that our founding fathers wanted them? You know, like the way that the Constitution was written like 250 years ago? Or should they let the Constitution change and adapt over time? What do you think? Vote with your fingers. 1, interpret the Constitution the way the founding fathers wanted, or 2, it's a changing document and we got to ignore what they wanted back then for like new ideas. Like as long as the new ideas are reasonable.
I can show it to you.
You're young, so I'm going to guess, and I can see that a lot of you are voting with a number 2. That is kind of what I would guess. Can you guess how the political parties kind of feel about this? What political party is more like number 1? Republicans. And what party is more like number 2? Democrat. Okay. So yeah, that's what today's lecture is about. Like, how should a judge behave? And then you need to know the phrases like activist and restraint. So let's take a look at it. I probably need to like pause. I don't know. Are you all like ready to go? Do you have a piece of paper or what? This is assignment. What did I say? What number?
Is this 10?
I can check. I'll check.
10?
It is 10.
Okay.
Assignment 10, 6.4, activism versus restraint. Yes, it is true that they're saying to make sure your students know that this stuff is optional, but I will say this. If or when the day comes, and I feel like it might be a couple weeks away, when they say, oh, hey, kids, it's not optional anymore. I'm just going to tell all the rest of the kids, like, go back and do the stuff we already did. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Like,
Ew.
plus we got to start, you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. So what you're doing is not in vain. That's the point. That's what I'm trying to say.
What section is this?
This is assignment 10, 6.4.
6.4.
6.4, judicial activism versus judicial restraint. Is your hand up, Nicholas, or is that just a little joke?
Oh, that was a joke.
That's okay.
The microphone is
You guys can try raising your hand if you want to ask me a question.
Try raising my hand.
I don't know. Well, like there's a button you can press.
Physically or the other?
Only half of
Just
you are
try
on
it.
only half of you are on my screen. But you can try physically raising your hand if you want. Okay, are we ready to get started? I think these notes are not super long. The only thing is if we were in class, I would be showing you like 5 different video clips. So I might be like putting those video links on Schoology. Because I actually think they are worth watching. They kind of show you a better point of view. And even if you're not Republican, like I'll show you some Republican judges, and it kind of shows, oh, I get why they feel like that. You know?
Okay.
Okay. I am once again going to. How do I do it? I don't remember. I was gonna try to mute you all again, but I don't remember how I did it. Like this? No. Like this? No. Like this? No. Like this?
Still
Oh, here
not
we go.
muted.
There. I just muted you all again. If you need to unmute to ask me something, I actually encourage that. It just helps us get rid of some of that background noise while I'm talking. I actually would love it if you chime in and say, Robinson, what about this? Or what are you talking about? That's fine. Okay. So judicial activism versus judicial restraint. Can you guess which one is which? Restraint is having like a strict interpretation of what the founding fathers would have wanted. And activism is trying to like interpret the Constitution as a living, changing document. Okay, here we go. Judicial activism. An activist judge. It's the philosophy that the courts should take a very active, and I would underline active, role in the solving of society's problems. So like this is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg would feel. She sees problems in America and she wants to solve them. A judge who is an activist judge wants to be like a guardian of the people. They want to like help people. At least in their opinion, they want to help people. And I want to add like a third bullet, but I'll wait for you to catch up. Chick-fil-A, y'all. It was an emergency.
ASMR.
What's up? Oh, ASMR.
I said ASMR.
Could you hear that? Wow.
Yeah, I can do that. Nice.
My sister lives in North Carolina. She sent me a picture. Gas is $1.45.
What?
That actually often means that the economy is not good. If gas is that low, that means people are not buying oil. That could be a problem, actually. I saw down the street from it was like $2.85, which is pretty darn good. Okay, the third bullet that I want you to add that is not there is an activist judge is more likely to strike down laws as unconstitutional. An activist judge is more likely to strike down laws as unconstitutional. That's actually like, that's like the FRQ answer right there. Like, so the FRQ I give in this unit is knowing the difference between the two types of judges. And you need, it's like on the key, student must mention that an activist judge is more likely to strike down laws. So when Brown v. Board, when they struck down school segregation, that's an activist judge decision, okay? Okay, we do have, like, look at the examples here. They're all, look at, can you see my mouse cursor? It says striking down, striking down, striking down, striking down, striking down. I can talk about each one of these if you want. I think it'd be good to write little brief notes, not the full thing. But the first bullet is the case you actually need to know, so why not write it down? It was Texas v. Johnson, a very famous case. Texas had a law that you were not allowed to burn the flag. You remember when hippies would like burn the flag? Texas had a law that said you can't do that. And then a guy did burn the flag and a guy did go to the court and they said Supreme Court said, yes, he can burn the flag, and they struck down that law. So Texas v. Johnson was a freedom of speech case. That's one of like the 14 cases we need to know for APGov. Another one that was taught to you in Unit 1, sort of. Remember the kid that brought a gun to school and he wasn't supposed to do that because the federal government said don't do that? When they struck down that law, That was an activist judge decision to strike down that law. And striking down a Florida recount in Bush v. Gore, I would say you don't need to write down that one. It's not that big of a deal. You don't need to write down the fourth bullet. Do you want to talk about the fifth bullet? It's kind of, how do I say, spicy. This is awkward. I remember every year in class I teach this. Now it's recorded, so I feel extra weird to say it out loud. But are you familiar with this word right here? I don't want to explain it to you. Can you see my mouse? Well, many states in America have laws, and maybe even still have laws against sodomy. Sodomy, Let me Google it and give you a not so. All right, thanks. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Get over here. They can't
Hello.
see you. Oh. Ah.
What Mickey Mouse?
Well, why is Mickey back there? All right, go to bed. Shut my door. Okay. Long story short, without making. Okay, sounds good. Long story short about the word sodomy. What this is let's say that you're a state that doesn't like gay people and you want to be mean and discriminate against them. What you would do is ban gay sex. You understand? Okay. So Texas had a law that said you can't have gay sex, and somebody got caught somewhere. Actually, there's a whole story. I would have kids teach the case, actually. I don't know if I want to get into the whole story. It's kind of scandalous. It was like a lover's triangle. You want to hear the story real quick? Okay, yeah, you do. All right. So, really quick version. I'm trying to remember how it goes. You guys. Okay, there are two guys, and I think I might be like embellishing the details a bit, but they're two guys, and they're dating each other, and they're hooking up or whatever, and it's like the 90s, I think. And I want to say that they're like at a hotel or an apartment complex, and one of the guys leaves to get like a snack. Like he goes down the street to get a snack. And when he returns, he finds his lover with another man. Like another man, you feel me? Okay? And he's so mad, yeah, triangle. He's so mad that he calls the police and he makes up. He's like, there's a black man with a gun in this hotel room or in this apartment room. And so the cops come bang down the door, because if you say black man with a gun, they're there in like 4 seconds, right? Okay. So they come and they come and they bang down the door and they catch two men in the middle of a love making. And so they get, because you might wonder, like, how do you arrest somebody for that, right? You'd have to see it. Well, the person called the cops so that they would see it. Does that make sense? Anyway, there you go. And then the guy's like, and then somebody thought this is a good time to, there was no gun or nothing like that. They thought this is a good time to like challenge the law in court. And so they did, and they won, and the law was struck down. So kind of a funny story. That is not a case you need to know, but it used to actually be on the list, believe it or not. So you need to know that an activist judge is likely to strike down stuff. The opposite of an activist, is it okay for me to move on? Thumbs up if you're pretty well caught up. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not writing every word of those cases down there, but you should know Texas v. Johnson. You should know U.S. v. Lopez. That's about it from there. Okay. The opposite of an activist judge is a judge that practices judicial restraint. Judicial restraint, I would almost put as my first bullet, AKA like do the least. Like don't do much. Do very little. Strike down very little. And people that believe in this believe in kind of the literal interpretation of the Constitution. So let's look at it. It's the philosophy that courts should allow the states and the other two branches of the government just oh, I see. I misread it for a second in my head, but basically in this case, the judge doesn't see themselves as someone who needs to fix America's problems. They're like, I'm just a judge. They see Congress and the states, it's their job to fix America's problem. It's not my job to like be putting my point of view on stuff. An example would be like gay marriage. A judge who believed in restraint would be like, that's not up to me to decide. Like, you guys legalize gay marriage. Like, I won't stop you, but like, I don't want to be the one to legalize gay marriage. Like, it's not my job. Does that make sense? Is my explanation, does that make sense? Thumbs up if that makes sense. Okay. So they want the states to solve America's problems, and they want the other two branches, the president and Congress, to solve America's problems. So for an example, if you want to write down an example, gay marriage, they would be like, I'm not going to fix it. Like America should fix it. Congress should fix it. It's not my job to legalize gay marriage for the whole country. And there's a part of me that understands that point of view. Like, they don't want to go out of their way to fix America's problems. In their mind, they're like, the Senate should do it. Congress should do it. They should legalize gay marriage. I won't stop them, but it's not my job. But I would say that more of me is like, I like the activist better, because Congress is so slow to solve America's problems. Christian, you raised your hand. What do I do?
So would you say that they're taking the easy route? Like,
in my mind, a little bit. They're definitely taking the non-controversial route. So like
similar to like when they're in congressional reviewing. I'm blanking.
Like the phrase you're wondering what phrase you mean?
Yeah, I forgot the phrase, but when they're being reviewed by the Senate committee, how they like to dance around.
In a way, yeah. They're avoiding solving the big problem because they don't want to make a stink about it. But
okay.
But they're counting on Congress to do something that I think we know that Congress is. They don't solve. Like Congress didn't solve gay marriage. It's 2020. Congress never passed a law that said gay marriage is okay. We needed the judges to do it. So I think this point of view has problems. I think it has some flaws. Like, don't you think America was ready for gay marriage? Thumbs up if you agree America was okay, like they were going to be okay. It was going to be all right. That's how I feel. But do you think if the courts never did it, that gay marriage would be legal today? Because I don't. Not in all 50 states. I don't think so. You think Alabama was ever going to legalize gay marriage?
Nope.
So, okay.
Hell no.
All right, here we go. So someone who believes this thinks that federal courts should act only in those situations where there's clear constitutional questions. Otherwise, they should get out of the way, and they should let elected lawmakers do their job. They think that courts should just interpret law, don't make law. And this is
uploaded to YouTube.
Go ahead. Who said something?
Is this going to be uploaded to YouTube?
It will. Yes.
Okay, because I have to go.
Okay. Peace.
Nice, yeah.
And then this is what I always think of when I think of judicial restraint. I think of they want to follow the original intent of the founders and think about like, what did Madison want and what did Jefferson want? And again, maybe it's just my bias, but I see a little bit of flaw in that because the country is so much different, than it was back then. Like women, they can own property now and like get divorces. And it's like, do we really want to look at what the nation thought was right 250 years ago? Maya, did you have your hand up?
I had a question.
Yeah.
So for the second bullet, it's just saying like they only act on something if it's like in the Constitution.
Yeah. So like for gay marriage, a judge that's here would be like, well, where does it say that men can get married to each other in the Constitution? And like, it's not there, then we're not going to do it. Where an activist judge would be more like, is that really equality? What about the 14th Amendment? What about equal protection? So like an activist judge might like dig and like make it work. A restrained judge would be like, where does it control F gay? I can't find it. It's not in the Constitution. You know what I mean? Like they're much more like by the book.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. I like this because you can ask questions. Much better. I have to tell you something. Judicial restraint has a few different names. So I want us to write down the other names of judicial restraint. They all mean the same thing. So I don't want you to, yeah. So I want you to know if the FRQ says something else, like it's saying the same thing. So here we go. Are you ready? Go back up to the title. Judicial restraint is also known as strict interpretation of the Constitution. And it's also known as like originalism or originalist, to be an originalist. Like I believe in what they originally wanted, So judicial restraint, strict interpretation, or originalist or originalism is the same. And I would say, I don't know, I'm always hesitant to tell you that like Republicans are restrained and liberals are activists, because that's not 100%. It doesn't always work perfectly, but in the modern day and age, in this court right now, it just depends. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah. If you're activists, you're striking down laws. The Republican judges can strike down liberal laws too. So it's a little tricky to say Republicans are always restrained, because that's not necessarily true. Are we ready to move on to the next slide? Yep. Okay. And I will upload this, but it would probably take like a little while after. Oh, I want to watch this. When I do upload this, it'll go onto Schoology with some questions and stuff, and I'm going to have this video separate. I would watch it. This is a guy that died in his sleep, and he's kind of a really interesting character. He's the judge, to remind you. Like, remember, he died, and Obama tried to replace him. He's an interesting dude. He's very conservative, but he's like funny and charismatic, and he's kind of interesting to see like his point of view. And so I want you to kind of watch it. You also see how him and Ruth Bader Ginsburg are good friends. So yeah, when you go to Schoology, I'll have that video on there. I don't think there's any easy, clean way for me to play this on Zoom. Okay. How about you just listen to this? I don't know that I would write it. Back in the day, FDR, during the Great Depression, he complained that the conservative judges were being activists. So remember I said that like you think of activists and you think liberals? This just shows you that it wasn't always that way. When he was president, they kept striking down his laws. Like he passed a minimum wage law, they struck it down. He banned child labor, they struck it down. He created something to like take over factories, they struck it down. He created that thing to like buy the farmers' plants, they struck it down. I don't know if you guys were in APUSH, you probably talked about this a little bit more than like regular US history. But he was very frustrated by the court, and that's kind of proof like you can be a conservative activist judge, but it feels like today it's like the opposite, where the conservatives are restrained. I'm not going to stress about this bullet. You can listen to the story and not write it down. He got so frustrated with the court that he said he was going to add 6 judges to the court, like just because he was mad at them. He's like, I'm going to add 6 more Supreme Court judges. And the court, like, I don't know how to explain. They were like so scared that he was going to do it, they stopped striking down his laws. And he never did add 6 judges to the court. And you might wonder, could he do that? And the answer is, if Congress passed a law that said he could, yeah, he could. But Congress never even passed that law. And it's probably good that he didn't do that, because that would have been pretty crazy. Oh, there you go. I was right. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can just read this and not write it down. But in the more modern times, it's conservatives that complain that liberals are activist judges. Remember the Warren Court? They struck down a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe write down the Warren Court was considered activist. Here's some stuff that like the Warren Court did. The rights of the accused, remember, like Miranda rights. They got rid of prayer in schools. They did the Baker v. Carr case. They did a whole bunch of stuff that protects, like MAP v. Ohio, stuff that protects your rights. So they struck down a bunch of like stuff where like cops can go in your house without permission. They struck down those laws. And I feel like somewhere on your paper, it should say that in the modern day and age, people think of liberal judges as activists. Whether or not that's deserved, I don't know. That's up to you. But we're not writing down this entire thing. What's funny is that Warren, I might have told some of your classes this, Earl Warren was a Republican. And he was nominated by a Republican president, but while he was a judge, he like seemed to change his philosophy, and he became liberal. And that's the power of being a judge. Nobody can like pull you out for like changing your mind. Anybody got a question? Anybody want to unmute? How many people are we up to? 28. All right. Can I click thumbs up? Okay. We're not going to write down this, but this is just more of the same stuff where the Burger Court was less activist, but still kind of activist. Roe v. Wade. We never learned this case. I'm going to assume in the next, what is it? It's March 20 something. You basically have 2 months till the AP test, I would guess. They haven't told us what dates, but I'm going to guess you have about 2 months till the AP test. Somewhere in between there, I'll make a video where we learn the different court cases that we haven't learned in class. This is one. UC Regents v. Bakke. I'm not going to stress about this. We're just going to move past it. Okay. All right. Is this the last? Oh, almost the last. Okay. So go ahead and write down this. Restraints on judicial power. I look at this and I feel like we kind of like have this all memorized already. So if you look at it and you're like, Robinson, I got that, you don't have to write it down. But courts can make decisions, but they cannot enforce them. Sometimes we have some crazy presidents who just ignore the courts in the past. Courts cannot reach out and take cases. They have to wait for one to arrive at their doorstep. I know for sure we wrote that down in class. Courts can only rule on real live controversies. They cannot create a case. You can't have like, I don't know, somebody who has a case on like marijuana come to their court and suddenly you legalize heroin. You know, like you can't like make the case bigger than it is. And then the president appoints judges, so that's kind of like a check on judicial power too. I unmuted you, unless you were muted yourself. Hello, hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
You guys are well behaved. We can do a little unmuted, right? My son's kindergarten teacher did a Zoom with his classmates, and it was like total chaos. But really cute also. Like my son was so excited to see his classmates.
Aww,
I feel bad. He's very he's not upset, but he's very confused about he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Like, Papa, we're going back next week, and I'm like, not really. Yeah. Hey, today, did you need a password to get into this thing?
No.
No.
Just use the link.
Did anybody need to type a password? You
I
did.
know. Oh wait, what?
Some people did.
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I think if you need, if you use the meeting ID, you need to use the password. But if you click the link, you're fine.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think.
It remembers you once you click the link. It just opens it up if you have the app or whatever.
Okay.
Because if you're still logged into the app, then if you click the link, it just opens in the app.
Okay. Can I click past this? Or are you still writing? Looks like you're still writing, huh?
I'm done.
Some of you. I watched The Invisible Man. It was all right.
Nice.
Just
I
okay.
liked it.
You liked it, Isabel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
I
can't
wanted to
watch
like it. I was like,
It sounds stupid.
It kind of was.
Like, it's like every other like superhero where like the villain is like invisible. It's like, oh, throw dust on them, like throw paint on them, then
Yeah.
you'll see them. Like, it's just so awesome.
Well, did you see it, Tyler?
No, it just looks stupid. Like,
Well,
from
what
the-
drove a part that drove me crazy is that she throws paint on him, and then he goes to the kitchen and like washes it. It's like, have you ever got paint on yourself? That is not coming off.
Yeah.
Like the next scene, he's
Unrealistic.
invisible. Like 10 seconds later, he's invisible again, and the kitchen sink has like paint in it. It's like, no. If you get like a little drop on my finger, it's gonna take me like a few minutes to clean that off. Very
especially if
unrealistic.
it's house paint too.
Yeah.
ASB kids, we know, like, you're never getting house paint off. All my jeans stained with house paint.
Right. Exactly.
My favorite hoodie too, and it's stained.
I spilled silver paint all over my one shirt.
It's a curse, the paint.
Mr. Robinson, a good movie that you should watch is Knives Out.
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh yeah.
I've been meaning to watch Knives Out. Oh my god.
You haven't seen it? It's really
It's
good.
on.
I'm mad.
It's on Amazon Prime for $3.99 to
Ooh.
rent.
I highly recommend it. I think it was one of the best movies of the year.
But if you want the full thing, without having to pay for it, you can just find it on Twitch. They put
on Twitch.
On Twitch.
I watch my movies. I go on.
Someone
Twitch and I
streams
find
it or
the
what?
movie, and I find all the live streams.
That's funny. Yeah, that movie's really good. I liked it a lot. Okay, I'm gonna click. I think we have 2 slides.
Oh, nice.
Basically, this is like a recap. These are the last 2 slides of the whole unit. It's a little baby unit. And the topic is kind of like, what are the checks on the Supreme Court? So again, so this is what is Congress's checks on the Supreme Court. Remember that the Senate confirms the judges. That's a check on their power a little bit. They investigate. The Congress can impeach and remove a judge, but it's like, I think maybe one time in 200-something years has that ever happened, so it's pretty rare. Congress can. Here, I'm gonna let. I'm gonna mute you all again. Congress can increase the number of courts and judges, so that limits the judges' powers. Remember, this whole section of the notes is like what limits their power. They can increase the number of courts and judges. And imagine, like FDR, if he was going to add 6 judges, he was making the judges weaker by doing that, although the plan fell apart. What's next? If I were you, I would limit this 4th bullet to just the first 3 words. Congress can pass amendments to the Constitution. And we did that whenever the courts would not, because we had some crappy courts. When they would not listen to what we wanted, we passed amendments. So like when they made the Dred Scott decision and said like a slave is a slave no matter where he travels in the country, we passed the 14th Amendment to make sure that wouldn't happen again. When we tried to pass a tax and it was struck down, we passed the 16th Amendment to allow the federal government to have taxes. When they wouldn't allow women to vote, they passed the 19th Amendment to allow women to vote. So we do that. This is the reason we pass amendments, is before that, court cases are being lost. And it probably would have taken like a gay marriage amendment in order to like get gay marriage legalized in the modern day and age. Sometimes Congress, this is a little confusing, but sometimes Congress will pass a law that looks a whole lot like another law that was struck down in the past. So an example, you remember how like U.S. v. Lopez, that gun-free school zone act was struck down? And a lot of me is like, really? It seemed like an okay law. I feel like that's one where like in your lifetime, you might see Congress pass a similar law just to see like, what's the court gonna do? Are they gonna strike it down again, or are they gonna let it be? A lot of times they'll just let it be. But they have to decide to let it be, kind of. If it arrives at their doorstep, they could strike it down or they could let it be. Ugh. On this one, we're just going to write down the first 5 words because it's so long and I don't think it's like super important. Determining the jurisdiction of the courts is something that Congress can do. They can change like the boundaries of like what area you're in charge of. Remember the districts and the circuits and all that and how they had like geography? Congress could redraw the map if they wanted, but I don't think that that's worthy of writing down all those words. So you're just going to write down the 5. I feel like this is in order of importance here. So I would know like the first 4 bullets pretty well and you'll do good on like the FRQ. Daniela, I see you. Congratulations to you on your college admissions, wherever you end up. Good job. Way to go. I see you guys. I appreciate those of you that put your little video on so I have something to look at. It helps me to know if you're getting it. Thank you for dancing, Reggie. Good job. What's up, Jojo? Stop hiding. All right. Should I move on? Did you, because you should have shortened those last 2 anyway, or last 2 out of those 6. I see some of you writing still, so I can wait. Is that a Tame Impala water jug? Is it? That's funny. Is this just what our life looks like now? Zoom lectures? Zoom school? It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, and then finally the last slide is, and I think that the topic would still be restraints on judicial power. So we're still on the same topic. And these are 2 different things, but stare decisis is kind of a restraint on judicial power. Like they typically, like 97% of the time, they're going to do what other courts have done in the past. So if an abortion case came today, even if a lot of judges are against abortion, they would probably honor Roe v. Wade and not strike down abortion. That's stare decisis, honoring prior decisions. Now, there's nothing that says they have to do that. And it could be that time that they decide, you know what, we're going to ban abortion and it wouldn't be against the rules. They can do whatever they want. And then finally, the last thing that's like a check on their power is public opinion. All these words just say that the Supreme Court is not, look, they're mostly immune to public opinion, but they're not completely. I think gay marriage is a good example. The court had lots of chances to rule on gay marriage and they chose not to. And it's like the same judges that were on there were still on the court like 20 years ago, and then all of a sudden they decided we're going to legalize gay marriage. So it's kind of proof that like as the public's opinion changes, I think they feel that. I think they're aware of that. At least in the modern day and age, I heard like crying from upstairs, kids crying. So in other words, I think judges kind of are aware of public opinion, and it can shape, you know, if the whole nation felt like Trump did something bad, if like 95% of people thought Trump did something bad, I think the judges would be aware of how the nation felt, and they would probably keep that in mind when they made their ruling. Also, I guess right here you have life term as a reminder. Imagine if I had a question like, why are judges appointed for life terms? And the answer is to like, it's to protect them from political pressure. So they don't have to rule like as a Democrat, as a Republican. They don't have to make anybody happy. They don't have to make any president happy. Nothing like that. That they can just do what they think is right. And that could mean listening to the public's opinion, and it could mean ignoring it. The main thing I want you to take away today is that judicial restraint means you're doing a literal interpretation of the Constitution, and you don't think it's your job to solve America's problems. Judicial activism is the idea of you do think it is your job to solve America's problems. You think the Constitution was written so long ago that like they didn't believe in women's rights, or they didn't believe in African American rights or minority rights, and so like yeah, you're okay to solve America's problems because you think Congress is not able or willing to do it. Cool. And then in the modern day and age, people think that like Ruth Bader Ginsburg is an activist judge, and they think of the Republicans as more likely to be restrained, and that is debatable, but that's what people think today. I'm gonna unmute you. The lecture is essentially done. Look at all these videos we wouldn't watch if we were in class. Look at our fake homework that we don't actually have. Saturday school tomorrow, guys, at 8 a.m. Maybe not.
Do a Zoom tomorrow.
Saturday is Zoom
time
school.
of the Saturday
Tuesday, Saturday school.
Tuesday, Saturday.
I mean, honestly, this situation is pretty sweet for me. Like,
We low-key could have done this instead of Saturday school.
I could just like do this for 40 minutes and then tell you press play if you were not present for it. I'm gonna put a couple of these videos on Schoology, but if it's required, I'll mark it as required. That's about it.
SNL.
Thanks for coming out, y'all.
Do the Schoology quiz.
Thanks for having
It should be.
us.
Did somebody say something? Jason, did you say something? No, I don't know.
Oh no, I didn't say anything.
Me.
Oh, what did you say, Tyler?
Oh, do we have to do the Schoology quiz, or is there one?
Now, I got in trouble. Somebody ratted on me. You don't have to do anything, Tyler. You don't have to do.
Okay, but like, okay,
ratted
assuming
on
once you get access to the grade book back, will that be an assignment? Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
because I know that you. That's great that you 28 people are here, but like, I need you to show me that you have the knowledge. You don't have to watch it. You could be done with the quiz in like 5 minutes. That's fine.
Yeah.
Although there is some videos I'm gonna put on there that you weren't able to see today. Yeah. I don't know. Look, guys, they may never require for you to do anything in my class ever again. I really don't know.
So.
That sucks.
Because they don't know legally how. I don't know how to explain it, but
Like the only class I actually miss is APGov. I don't care about
Oh my god.
Well, I appreciate that.
Like literally, all my other classes are so boring. But like whenever there's a Zoom, I'm like, okay, bye. Like,
okay, I'll do it. Are any of your other teachers like doing a Zoom or anything like that?
No.
No, my teachers haven't even texted us on Remind.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, my teacher, she texted us on Remind. She's like, I hope you guys are doing your assignments, and everyone's like, you're not sending them. Like,
Yeah, what assignment?
Like we literally have been looking at our Google Classroom and nothing has been updated.
Really?
And I was like, okay.
My
I don't
stats
know,
teacher has been silent, and I hope it stays that way.
I mean, I could definitely